Welcome to my latest video of this brand new Red Sea Max Nano Peninsula tank. It's 100 litres, it's 60 centimetres front to back, it's 45 centimetres both across and deep. As I say, it's an all-in-one, and this is a first impression video, and we're going to rewind and pick this up when the cabinet has been built and the tank is sitting on the cabinet. So let's go. Let's take a first look at the display just out of the box. Finish on the glass looks pretty good. And what strikes me first of all is the silicone and the beading. So it looks quite thick for the size of tank. But it's only when you come up close that you actually see that what they've done is they've put plastic edging all the way down, all the way along, there, all the way along. So the only place there's no plastic edging is there, on up both sides, and there as well. It's there. Now the reason behind that, I think, is that Red Sea, I wouldn't say they've had issues. They've had tanks that have burst, and one of the reasons for is people using scrapers and going and digging into the silicon. That weakens the silicon, and then it leaks. So I knew they'd done that on their bigger tanks, but I didn't realise they'd done it on this small tank. So you can just see a top down there. There's the plastic that goes all the way down. So it's a really nice touch. It adds a really good finish to the tank. It does create this that's quite thick. I think on a bigger tank, 3, 4, 5, 6 foot, you wouldn't notice this so much. But you do on this small tank. Not that that's a disadvantage, because actually it looks quite clean. But that is a really nice display, and my first impression, it looks better than I thought it would. And certainly looks better than the first generation Red Sea Reefer 170. So I think they've upped their game there. And on the back there you've got a weir that slots out, and also a really nice touch. They've ended warranty. You get a 2-year warranty, but if you use the QR code there, it takes you straight to this site and you can get extended for 3 years. A small touch, but really easy to do, because quite often you have to try and find the website, you have to type the website in, that takes it there automatically. And also you have to try and find the serial number, and it pre-fills you with the serial number from the code. So nice touch, liking that. Take a look at the cabinet. So it does come flat pack, which straight out of the box is a downside for me, because I hate doing flat pack furniture, and I much prefer a cabinet that is ready made. So if you look at the DD Reef Pros, they're ready made, but I understand why this one's not. This is shipped all the way from China, so it's a lot cheaper to flat pack it, whereas the DD Reef Pros are made in the UK out in Essex, so it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. What it does mean, it's been about an hour looking at the cabinet and building it. But actually, once it's built, what do I think? So, just a few things that I think are worth noting. I had the Red Sea Reefer 450, and I've still got a Red Sea Reefer 170. This cabinet is thicker. The wood here is thicker, it looks more substantial, and of a better quality finish as well. Each time you put a screw in, so for example at the top there, you just about see it, you can put extra wood in across there to secure it. And then you've put plastic washers over the top there, so that really does help secure it. It's fairly easy to build, and comes with a couple of nice touches. These are clip-on, clip-off doors, and also they supply you with a little tube of grease, so you can put this over the screws to stop those going rusty, because they do go rusty and they will go rusty. However, what I would say in this particular tank, there's no sump. So ordinarily you've got a sump, you've got salt creep, you've got evaporation, and that affects there. So I think it's less likely in this particular tank. But overall, I think it's a good quality cabinet. I have been surprised. Or the other downside is, could have put a shelf in the middle. The problem is, quite often when you've got flat pack and you've got a shelf, they give you a choice of where to put, and they put pre-drilled holes. So if they put pre-drilled holes, you would have selected, I suppose, 4, 2 on each side, and then you would have had holes in there, which would have caused a bit of a problem if you've then got holes in a cabinet that salt could get into it and it then weakens the structure. I know you could put plastic washers over them to cover it, but I can see why they didn't do it. But that's would have been helpful because that's a big area of which you've got no shelving. What you can do easily is keep a auto top-up reservoir if you wanted to in there, a container with the pipework going up, and also you can keep your electrics in here if you've got additional electrics that you want to set up on this tank, like a dosing pump. But overall, I would say the cabinet is of good quality. One other thing, you've got feet on this, and on the old ones you used to have to put the feet in yourself, whereas the new ones they're already moulded and already fitted on, so must have listened to feedback because those feet were awful to put on. Quite often they wouldn't go in straight and they were just crap. And so the way the filtration works is the water comes down, it flows over the weir, down here through the sponge, through the filter sock, along there, up, gets skimmed, comes along, all the water passes through the carbon, and then up, down and through, and there's a black sponge that sits just above the return pump, and then that pumps it back in. And here is the big sponge here. That's quite big, so that really, I think it's supposed to stop the bubbles. So if you've got bubbles coming up through here, it passes here, gives it a final clean, but also then you haven't got bubbles returning, going through the return pump into this display. So really compact, but pretty good at what they're doing in terms of mechanical filtration. And then I assume your heater must sit somewhere along here, and then the power cable comes up, but we have to decide on what heater I'm going to go from there, but probably quite a small one, maybe 100 watt. Okay, so next on to the skimmer. I've already attached a pump to the skimmer body. It's actually a lot bigger than I thought it would be, and it just so happens I've got a Nios 160 I've taken out of the Red Sea Reefer 450. I'm up to see in terms of size, that's the 160. And if I just stand that by its side, it's actually quite big. Obviously a different share. I'm not comparing the two because that one's for up to 1,000 litres and this is for 100 litres. But it's quite substantial, and it's nice, got a thin profile because that will fit into the back. Takes a bit of time probably to break this in, might be a little bit noisy to begin with, but we'll see after 4 or 5 months what it's like. But first impressions, nice and simple. That's what goes on top there, and there's the power there, and that clips into the power unit. There it is in place there, and that snuggles right up to the edge there. And if you look from there, you've got a filter sock. Now that is really diddy. And that then goes straight back in to the hole there. I'll put it back in one-handed, which of course I'm struggling with. There you can see that going in, and then down here, that is where the auto top-off is going to sit, which I'll show you in a moment, and the return pump. Onto the return pump. Like most things on this, there's really good directions. As you can see, there's a symbol there, and that symbolises the return pump, which to most people, once you open it, is obvious, but it's good just to understand when you get it all out of the box what you've got. Quite a solid piece of kit, as you'd expect with a return pump, runs 24/7. There's the impeller there, and there's no plug in it because that will go into the power unit alongside the skimmer. And then what should happen is you connect it like that, and this should float in the tank, so it's not actually touching anything, so there shouldn't be any vibration. And obviously then the pipework goes up there, and then you've got the nozzles that return it into the display. Okay, almost at the end, so now we're going to put the return pump in. So that's the pump now, and then that sits at a 90-degree angle facing the front and will go through here. Just got to put this in first. Okay, it sits nice and square, flat across the rim. The eyeball goes in next, so that moves around. And then you've got this washer, will go onto there as well. Before you will screw this up into it and turn it. So let's see if the theory works into practice fairly easy. Not so easy because I'm actually right-handed. That's on, I think. And there you go, all in place. Step is to fit the auto top off. So this is slightly different to a lot of tanks. This is built in, works on a float switch. Now I've been using one of these, slightly different, but a float switch on the Red Sea Reefer 450 for just under 7 years. So it does have its drawbacks. It is gravity fed, so if this stays like that, but as the water evaporates, it drops and the water's released. If this gets gunked up and sticks, then it won't release the water into the tank, and there's no fail-safe for that, no redundancy. So that is potentially an issue, but I think if you clean this every so often, it's okay. I think in the 7 years, I had mine jammed maybe once a year, and when I went away, I looked at an alternative. More fundamental to this, which may be more irritating, is the amount of water. I'm not too sure how much water goes in there. That's probably not going to last that long. I think it's about 3 days, but we'll see. Probably depends on what's going on in the air temperature at the time. So it is a really simple approach. It's gravity fed. It does reduce your costs because you haven't got to go and spend 80, 90, 100 pounds on an auto top off. Pretty well built. Right, and last but not least, before putting the lights on, just going to fit this on here. Not too sure what you call that, but just a background, I suppose, so that you can hide the stuff at the back. So a nice finish, it's made of glass. So there we go, nearly set up. Just going to put the lights on. They fit around the back here. This is the Reef LED 50, and next to it is a XR15 Radium by Ecotech. And what's noticeable is the size. Now, great lights are the XR15s. I had this one, this is a Gen 4, and I've had Radians for probably 7.5 out of the 8 years that I've been reefing. But what strikes me is just really how small this fitting is, and also some of the thought that's gone into it. So it's easy to assemble, but the first thing is around how the wiring goes. You've got a clip there, it then goes through, and then you clip in something here. So what will happen is this will sit like this. You won't see the wiring, and that will come out and go back down the light, down the back of the tank. So really quite impressive. Very difficult to compare the lights because I haven't used this light, never used a Red Sea light before. But in terms of the quality, it feels like it's been made from decent material. The arm and the mount is really small in comparison to the arm on a Radian. There is no comparison. It is a lot larger. You can just see there. And I'm not knocking Ecotech at all. What I'm saying is this is a really slim light fitting for a small tank. When I filmed the cabinet the first time, there was a gap on the right hand side, and that was really down to me and my lack of building skills, and that's why I prefer a cabinet that's already ready made. All I did was take the tank off, put the cabinet on its side, undo and redo these back up, which then, when you do that, pulls the cabinet closer back together and secures it. So now the cabinet is secure and it's been built how it should be. Really pleased I actually filmed it because I would not have spotted it otherwise. Well, there we go. That's the setup of the new tank. Join me in the next video when we'll be looking at either the aquascape or getting the tank wet. So thanks for watching.